What is up? What is going on? What do we have here today? We have two dudes in backwards hats about to tell some tales from the field, tales from our guys in the field. And who do we have here today? We have the one and only Mr. Tersh Blissett, which I found out recently that, and I didn't know this about you, Tersh, that Tersh is not your real name. And I explained what in the world Tersh meant. But before we go into that, I know most people know who you are, at least in the field, but there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that are in other fields, that are in other industries that, may not know who you are. So take a second, tell them who you are, Tersh.
Okay, cool. First off, really do I appreciate you allowing me to be here and hang out with you. First and foremost, before I say anything else, it's truly an honor. So my name is Tersh Blissett, and I am the owner and founder of a couple of HVAC plumbing and electrical companies in Savannah. And then I have also a podcast that I started in 2017, and we've been rocking along ever since then. I was driving a lot going to the office because I actually live about an hour away from the office. And so I was driving 2 to 3 hours a day, and I ran out of books to listen to, and I couldn't find any podcasts that were HVAC specific, dealing with business. And so I actually reached out to a buddy of mine who had an HVAC technical podcast, training technicians, HVAC school podcast, and asked him about it. And he showed me how to start a podcast and hit the ground running.
Yeah. Well, what's the name of that podcast? I mean, most people, like I said, they know, but there's going to be people that don't know.
Yeah. So Service Business Mastery. And the podcast has actually morphed into nearly a full-time job now, because we're teaching a lot of people how to build automations and using AI in their business. So it's not just home service dedicated automation and AI stuff, but we focus on the trades more than anything else.
Yes. And I've gained a lot out of your podcast too, which is, the Service Business Mastery podcast. You cover so much, and you've had guests on that have been, monsters of the industry, monsters of any industry. In fact, you've had authors on there. What you've done with this podcast is incredible from just a perspective of kind of conceptually where it started. And dude, I don't think people realize how much you and Josh have put into this industry. And part of my journey here and starting this was, you and I have had a lot of fun together. We've hung out, we've been to trade shows together and whatnot. And I just and I know we talked about this, and I did want to add some levity. But I really don't know if you understand the magnitude of the reach that you have. And Gil, and I was on Gil's podcast last week for HVAC Uncensored, and it's the same thing. The things that you guys have done, just awesome, right? So now the purpose of this was we focus and all day we focus on business, and we focus on how to grow your business, and we focus on all the things that can help create success. And we're surrounded by successful people. And now this is very, very different. So you've heard the other episodes. This is really sales tales, man. This is like the grind in the streets, boots on the ground, what happens in the field to our teams and so forth. And fully decked out in spiked shoes and backwards hats and ties. We're gonna we're gonna have a good time, man. So it's been a minute since you've been in the field, though, right?
Yeah. So whenever I started Service Emperor, I was very adamant that I wanted that company to start off with me not in the field, because I wanted to show people who are in the field that they could get out of the field really easily if they just said no. Like if they gave away their tools or they gave away their van and said, I can't get in the field because I don't have any tools to go. So that was 2019, really 2018, 2019. And of course I've gone in the field since then and like helped out guys and I've even done PMs during the summertime when we overpromise and we're potentially going to underdeliver. So I was like, yeah, I can't do that. So I went to the supply house, bought a new meter, bought a 10-in-1 and, went to town. And so, yeah, I've still been in the field a couple of times since then, but for the most part, it's probably been 2018 since I've been out of the field.
So let me ask you this. So going back, what was the tell me if there's an experience that you remember from being in the field that like shaped you today, like where you think back and you're like, man, that call, that customer shaped me, helped shape a piece of me.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of those really. With my other company, we work with a lot of low end income and also like multifamily housing and stuff like that. So you never really know what you're going to run into when you're doing that. So the whole business model behind the other company is one where it's high volume, low margin. So like it's not uncommon for the guys to catch 12 service calls a day because the average ticket's like $200 because that's the not to exceed is $200 for most of your property management companies, or $250 maybe. So the ticket range is there, right? But one of the things about a property management company is they don't want to do maintenance. Like typically, like you can't sell them a maintenance contract or maintenance agreements like you can with a homeowner necessarily. One of the things that I figured out was that tenants would fancy up properties or clean them up or just like tear down weird shit whenever they knew a property manager was coming, but they didn't care when a maintenance guy came or an HVAC guy came. So I sold the property managers on the fact that we could do these maintenances for like, I don't know, call it $75 every visit. And we'll come out there and we'll do a room by room inspection because we're going to tell the tenants that, hey, we got to get in every room to check the air conditioning. And that's
I already know where this is going.
Wild, dude. So I don't know if you've ever been in like a 400 square foot apartment that had a 600-pound potbelly pig in it, but that's a tight fit. And yeah,
in an apartment building.
It was a house, like a small house, like a duplex type thing. Yeah, so that's kind of a wild scenario. And like they were complaining about the toilet leaking. Well, they stored the pig in the bathroom and the foundation just wouldn't handle all of that. So it was like distorting the foundation and the wax ring was just gone. Everything had waddled loose and that thing had to back
bumping into everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He had to back in and walk straight out. Oh yeah. It was disgusting. And that was their pet, like for real, their pet. And so yeah, that's those, like I never thought that I would run into stuff like that. But the more once we turn stuff in like that, like, hey, look, these are really nice people, but they have a massive pig in their house. You're like a piglet, like little piglets running around? No, like it's the size of their bathroom. And they're like, we've been there. We were there 3 weeks ago. It was not there. I was like, that pig's been there a long time. And that pig's causing damage, like all this stuff. We just thought they had like wild kids or something running around. Nope. That's from a pig.
Okay. So I talked to Gil about this, and I ran a call in North Jersey, and the guy and the couple had a pig living there, but he wasn't living in the bathroom. He was living like a dog, like just like a regular dog, like somebody had a dog and these people had a pig, and it was, dude, the floors were wrecked. The house was wrecked.
Those hooves caused so much damage, especially on like hardwood floors. Like, and this was a very old house. Like this was, I mean, I wouldn't know how old this house is, but it was definitely not a house that could support the weight of that pig. It was wild.
Let me, so we had a question from the audience here. Jennifer Manzo asked, I'll post it here. She said, does anybody know if there's an install only contract you can get with property management? I got lucky and met a guy who does prop management who gives us his. Would be a great opportunity everywhere though. And now I haven't done property management in my career. Any insight in that, Tersh?
Really develop relationships. And you have to be 100% okay with saying no. I'm not going to do that, because there are some property managers and management companies that will like let you do all the work in the world and then never pay you, or drag it out for 6 months before they pay you. So I'll tell you, this isn't the way it is with all properties. And it's not all apartment complexes, but a lot of property managers that work for apartment complexes, and I'm talking about national apartment complexes, like we do work for all of them, and they get bonused based on the lack of calling in work. So
yeah,
the lower their cost of to do things, the better. Like
right.
get
The
like
less their maintenance, the less money they spend, the more. Yeah.
the
So
more
let
money.
me. So tell me about. All right. So tell me about a slumlord situation. I got to hear this,
Dude. So I try my best to avoid slumlords all I can. We did a couple. Okay, so I'm kind of embarrassed to say this. We did a couple of like sold sight unseen because they just were calling around, and I was like, "Look, you got to pay up front because this is shady sounding." And we've gone into houses where we've had to tear the floor out because we couldn't get underneath the house, and all the ductwork and everything's underneath the house. And it was like hardwood floor and what do you call that? Where the flooring itself is the subfloor, and it was a very like we tore it out, and the air handler was underground, and we wanted to put it inside the space, but the guy was like, "Nah, just stick it right back in the hole." It's like, okay. And so we did that, and then the guy just put a hatch on top of it and like never put flooring back down or anything. And so like when we go to service this thing, I was like, this is embarrassing, dude. Like I can't believe that and I damn shouldn't put a sticker on that unit. Like
you wait, okay, hold on. Let me just wait. So the slumlord put the air handler in the ground underneath the floor, and he didn't put flooring back there. He just threw a hatch on top of it and said, "All right." And the people would walk over it.
Yeah. Like yeah. I think one tenant put a rug over the top of it, but it literally like he put a piece of plywood down and like drilled a hole, like a 3/4 inch hole on one side of it, and then put like piano hinges on the other side of it and called it a day. There wasn't insulation under it. There wasn't anything. It wasn't sealed. Like I'm sure there was a draft and everything else. And I was like, man, we need to like size this thing for proper. He was like, nah, man, like a 2 tons should be good. I was like, nah, dude, like this. Oh man. Like, so yeah, like I said, like I feel bad for that one, but yeah, the people, I mean, it also sucks because some of these people are paying like $100 a month to live there.
I was like Section 8.
Yeah. And so it's like, they typically don't stay there very long. And I imagine it's because it's a slumlord, situation, but there's, they still have to be inspected. So somehow this guy's getting around it because
unless he doesn't call for inspection or, I mean, dude, those building inspectors, they pop in, they pop out, like they go to those places. I mean, it's not like, if you had something done in your house, you'd have 10 fail stickers and then they would charge you for every little tiny violation, but they can't milk, blood from a rock at those places. So they just kind of like, okay, is it dangerous? Okay. Nope.
Yes, exactly. Pass. And half the counties around here don't even have an inspections department. So the only thing
in Georgia?
Oh yeah. Well, in our area. Yeah. Actually the county that I live in has no inspections department. The only thing that gets inspected is the septic by the state.
Wow. But you're outside the city. Obviously you're outside the city
Yeah.
limits.
Yeah. I live on 250 acres outside of Savannah. Yeah.
Tiny
Probably
piece of
wouldn't
property.
you probably wouldn't know that. I mean, just by looking at me, I don't, can't judge a book
Yeah, I
by its
would,
cover,
man.
but
It's probably the pocket scarf and the ties. I mean,
right.
the spikes on the shoes. For
Yeah.
anyway, for people who are watching, because we got a whole bunch of people in the chats and stuff like that. For people that are watching this, Tersh is the most fashionable human being in a way that is so unique that like I want to be Tersh. I want to be this guy. He literally has pairs of loafers, okay, that have spikes. If you guys haven't met him, okay, because you can't see him on his podcast, he has spikes coming out of his shoes, like
Yep.
like loafers, like $500. Like I don't know, what are those Ferragamos with like spikes coming out of it? It's fantastic.
Yeah, I have I have a new pair of red bottoms that I just got, and they have spikes everywhere, all the way around them. So they'll catch your ankles.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So I have a now two, but I have one built limo that's on 53-inch mud tires.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second, because I know that's not relevant to like like service stories, but I saw a post that you had on it was on TikTok.
Oh yeah,
and I'm looking in the background and I see at your house you quite literally have a vehicle graveyard on your property.
Yeah, and you can't even see most of the vehicles. And the funny thing is like, so my wife drives a 2023 Aviator with, it's tuned and everything, 600 horsepower, and it like that's not what the video is of. It's of my beater Suburban that I've got like a 13-inch lift on, and I put what's up, Dan? I put a built motor in it, and we did a cold start on it, and so it's cammed and everything else. And then you can see one of my Mustangs. I have one that's got a single 88 millimeter turbo, and it's just sitting there freaking about rotting away just because I don't ever drive it. And then have my my limo. Actually maybe both limos are in that video, but the one that's already lifted is definitely in the video. I seen it the other day. I was watching it. But yeah, I actually have a couple of other Mustangs too that are back there hiding behind the other white Mustang. I have a coupe Mustang. That's my favorite.
What let me ask you this. Okay, so talking about like weird things in at people's houses, what's like, do you remember the strangest thing that you ever received or saw?
Well, I'll tell you, you asked me earlier if there's somebody that taught me something as a client. And absolutely, yes. I will never, ever walk in a door again when somebody says the door is unlocked. Just come on in. Like, never happen again. I had this person that I should have picked up on the odor prior to walking in the door, but this person, I believe it's self-inflicted, decided not to get up for long periods of time. And when I say long periods of time, I mean probably years of their life. And they had dogs and cats. And I don't know if you've ever smelled like a cat urine infested house, but golly. And this house had hardwood floors in it. Like, this is an old, like Victorian style house, but not nice. It's like very far from nice. And she called in, she was like, hey, the last company was going to change out this unit, but then they refused to do it. And I was like, wow, that's weird. So get there.
Come on in.
And yeah, they said, come on in, or whatever. And when I called them to do the pre-report call, she was like, yeah, I won't be able to walk to the door because I'm busy doing some stuff, but the door's unlocked. So just knock and come on in. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. But I got there and I knocked on the door, rang the doorbell, and I heard her say, just, hey, come on in, door's unlocked. And I was like, all right, click. So I opened it up, and oh yeah, it about knocked me over. But like, I'm worried about that stench in my nose and my nostrils and
Yeah,
that
it'll
that
stay
ammonia.
there.
Oh
It'll
yeah.
stay there for like at least hours, maybe days.
And I put my shoe covers on, and she's like, "Oh, don't worry about that, hun." I was like,
Yeah, no, I'm worried about
"No,
it.
I
These
am.
aren't
I'm
shoe
putting this on my
protectors.
shoes." Well, so I wasn't paying attention because I literally was like, my eyes instantly had this singe go into it, and so I was looking up and trying to look all over the place, but not at the ground and not paying attention. So I start taking steps. Well, I'm stepping on feces, and
Oh,
while I'm trying to look at her in the face while I'm just walking, and I realized,
oh,
like, this is not solid ground. Like, and I looked down and I'm like, mm, mm. I was like,
oh my gosh.
we
Oh
gotta
my
go.
gosh.
So we actually it ended up turning into a safety check, like a welfare check. I was like, I don't know what to do in this situation. So I like called up some buddies of mine who are police officers, and they're like, yeah, you need to do a welfare check, call in a welfare check. And they probably like somebody else needs to take care of that. I was like, yeah, this guy's not. Cause like I have a plumbing company, but I have plumbers because I don't mess with anything sewage related. That's
Mm.
not my cup of tea at all. And like everybody knows that. Everybody that works with me knows that. And so it's like the moment that happened, I'm like, I'm out. Like, no, can't happen. And so like I'll never walk into another house if somebody doesn't open the door for me.
Mm.
I'll make up an excuse, even if it's like, no, don't feel comfortable doing it.
Do you ever get people who like, oh wait, you live in the middle of nowhere. I was gonna say, do you get like people knocking on your door, like,
Oh yeah, I do.
canvassing? Oh yeah.
Yeah. I
So the
mean,
other day,
it's people from church, a church,
just one church.
particular church, religion.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They
Yeah,
canvass
so,
a lot.
yeah, so I had these dudes here the other day, and they just rolled up, and there was these 2 dudes, and it's funny because I could tell, like, the guy knocked on the door, and I could tell, I was like, "All right," I saw him through the window, I'm like, "All right, they're canvassing for roofs, right? Or windows or doors or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever." So I'm
Bad
like,
storm
"Okay,
comes
fine."
through.
And like, I'm like, all right, cool. So I open the door and I'm like, hey, and they're like, hey, we're down the block over here. We're doing a job for one of your neighbors. And it's like, dude, I mean, I've written these scripts before.
I was
So
gonna
like,
say,
I'm
like,
like,
I admire the hustle, but yeah, I don't like being on the receiving end of that always.
whatever. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I just keep talking, right? And like, like, so, and I have lead generators, so like, I'm, but they're not going door to door. They like,
Mhm.
whatever. We have box store partners. Anyway, so I've literally messed with them for like a solid 10 minutes, and then, and I was thinking, as you were saying, like, don't let people in. Like, I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, I was like, imagine I just was like, yeah, come on in. Like,
Come on
come
in
on
here,
in. But
sonny.
but the crazy part about it is I used to go in all the time. Like people would say, "Oh, just come on in. The door's unlocked." I'm okay, so I just go right. I didn't think about it. I'm like, let me go right in.
Uh-huh.
Brandon Stowe said, Everett, like, let me put you on game, young salesman. Like
Right.
it's
Hey,
actually more
let me
like,
teach you a thing or two.
yeah, it's actually more like a Danielle son, Mr. Miyagi kind of situation.
Mhm.
Speaking of that, Miyagi and Danielle son, tell me if you can remember if there was a customer that you truly like a wisdom that you came away from after having, been, a part of their life for however many hours, days, whatever it was. Do you have any experiences like that? Customers that,
I don't know if I would say immediate response from meeting someone, but I met someone. So we have a neighborhood called the Ford Plantation here, it was Henry Ford's like childhood place where he grew up. And the houses are, I mean, they're ridiculously expensive. And they're small. I mean, they're extremely well built, tight houses, like 2-inch thick hardwood floors. Like it's like crazy, like everything. They have bamboo or seaweed wallpaper on the wall, and it's decorative, and it actually looks good. But the problem is that it grows mold because it can't handle humidity. But that's neither here nor there. I met a guy who purchased a home there, and he called me out of the blue, and he's not from here. He's not from this area at all. And he was a banker in North Carolina, and he came down, he interviewed several different companies. And before he closed on the home, he wanted the systems replaced, and didn't question very many things at all. So it was kind of a weird sales process for me, because I'm used to having a lot of confirmations or like just rebuttals on different things. And he didn't care what brand I put in. He was just very much like, I want the top of the line. I don't want to worry about humidity, because he was afraid of humidity. And I was like, all right, I got you. I'll take care of you. And he said, I want a whole house media filter. After we got finished with the job, we changed out. It was three different split systems. We put in XB20 trained units. And I really was like, I just need to know more about this guy, because I never met him in person until months after I installed the system. And everything was
the house. He bought the house, contacted you. I guess he found you on Google or something like that.
His realtor referred me.
Okay. So yes. Okay. So he didn't shop because realtor says, okay, this guy's cool. This guy's legit. This guy's legit. Just go with this guy. Mm-hmm. And then he says, I want the tippy top of the line, which is like twice a year. You'll get those calls, right? Like, hey, by the way, I don't care what it costs. Just put in the best thing you can possibly put in. Yeah.
Yeah. And you give him this is back before prices got stupid, just by the way. So this is pre-COVID, like inflation.
Ridiculous. Yeah. Like everything was $25,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all right. So you want to meet this guy?
I hand him a check, or send him an invoice for $50,000, or estimate for $50,000, and instantly or 55,000, something like that. And for me, it was like the biggest single system sale that I'd ever done. Now this is not replacing ductwork, anything. And he instantly approved it, and he was like, who do I send a check to? I was like, well, you can send a deposit for whatever, send it straight to me. And then he instantly, he was like, that's all right, I'm gonna send you the whole thing because I don't want you worrying about anything. I was like, shit, all right. So I interviewed the guy like afterwards, not like podcast interview, but like I got to know what you do and all this other stuff. And the things that he taught me, and like just like I don't have like a crazy mentor relationship with him at this point, but it was just a lot of just words of wisdom. Like you just like sit around his table, and the things that he said, that like it just tons of aha moments for me. Like the fact that like I pull up in a truck, and like, because I mean obviously I own an air conditioning company, I have to have a jacked up crew cab Ram 2500. Like you got to, it's just lifted. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely, diesel and everything. And so like I pull up in that, and he's like, why did you drive here? And I was like, what do you mean why did I drive here? Like I live an hour away from here. I what the heck else am I gonna do? I ain't gonna ride a bicycle. And he was like, how much do you charge an hour? And I was like, well, I probably shouldn't tell you my hourly rate. You're my customer, like, but he's like, no, for real. Like, how much do you charge an hour? And so I tell him, and he was like, a driver only costs $20 an hour. I was like, yeah. He said, well, you could pay your driver $20 an hour, and you could be charging somebody else to do whatever you're doing, consulting, doing heat loads, whatever it is that you would do in an office while your driver is driving you around. And you'd make, $120, $300, whatever your hourly rate is, minus $20. And so I was like, damn, like that's just one of the things. And it was just stuff like that instantly I was like, you're smart. And he was like, yeah, but it's just the people you're surrounded by. And I was like, yes, that's a good point. He was like, no, for real. Like you are the people you surround yourself with. And it was at that point was whenever I was like, all right, I'm going to be intentional with who I surround myself with. And that's immediately whenever my circle ultimately changed. And I just went to, like, I had no disrespect against any of my friends that I had before then, but I just had a very, very much like all right, I need to be very intentional with who I allow in my circle. And because you are the people you surround yourself with. The 5 people you surround yourself with, that's who you are.
Yeah. And I've actually heard that before. And just going back on this, because a buddy of mine we used to work together. He just joined in and he said, I love the backwards hat and the vest and the tie, professional. Yeah. And Tony, we were talking about, it's just 2 dudes in backwards hats. I don't like sleeves. He likes sleeves. It's great. We're having a great time.
Mm-hmm.
On that point, by the way, of surrounding yourself with people, I met this, I'll never forget this. This was a sales call that I ran one of the first years I was in the business. And this guy, same thing. He was like a professional, sort of Americanized Indian guy. It was really cool to talk to. He was a sales executive at like some software company or something like that. And he was like, I really want this Carrier. I've heard about this Carrier Infinity heat pump system. And I was like, wow, that's a really great system. And we went on about how great it was and whatever else. And I, as I was talking to him, he said, that's the system that he wanted. And he didn't want to settle for anything else. Like, he was just like, this is what I want. Even though I know you gave me, all the options. He's like, here's how I live my life. I will always overspend. I will always spend more than what is comfortable for me, because I will then always have a goal to aim for. I will always challenge myself to go further and deeper and try to get that better thing for me and my family and everything else. And it's very counterintuitive to the way that we're all taught by these financial gurus and all these other, sort of like people who are like, no, be very conservative about the things that you do. And listen, I'm not saying that those things are wrong. I'm saying there's more than one way to slice the loaf of bread. And that guy taught me, I still carry that with me where I go. It's like, okay, push yourself. And look, was it a frivolous purchase? No, because obviously that thing was a 19 SEER unit at the time, right? I mean, he's going to make it back in energy costs and everything else. But, dude, isn't that amazing that like you can run? I have so many calls where I ran that somebody said some nugget that I went home with, and I live with it today. And, John DePasquale was on this show. Like, he was the first guest, and he said something like, how many houses does the average person actually go in like a year?
Oh, I don't know.
Think about it. Maybe Christmas,
other than
New Year's.
Yeah.
Like, but dude, I spent a decade inside of other people's houses 3 to 4 times a day, like meeting dude. That was the whole reason for this podcast, was like these crazy scenarios.
Did you know that you can't load your return grill area, your return plenum with weed? Your system will freeze up. And you don't ask what it is or anything else, or the stack of cash in the house next door. You just let them know that, hey, if you put anything in here, it's going to make your system freeze up, and then you're going to be hot and sweaty and uncomfortable.
So for those that may be listening who don't know what a plenum is, right? It's basically a box of duct. Like it's duct work that's attached to your AC system. And so I think the things that you have found in that, obviously you had a guy who had, I guess, pounds of weed just sitting inside of
blocks of it. Blocks of it. So blocked off the whole airflow to this unit and froze solid. And he was upset with me when I first got there. But
why?
Then he was irritated that his unit was frozen, and it was a property management home, and we don't go there super fast typically, because like it is what it is. You're not paying us a ton of money, so you get on schedule when you get on schedule. And they probably had to wait a week or so, and I get out there, and it's one of those things where you walk in the front door and the return grill's on the ground right in front of you, and you just, all right, something sounds weird instantly. Like I'm walking to the thermostat, but I didn't even make it to the thermostat. Just pop it open, flips down, and you're like,
pounds of weed.
That's not right. Yeah,
pounds of weed.
That don't look good. Like, why does this house smell like it does? Because we're sucking all this smell up and shooting it all over through the house.
Wow. Thank you, Logan. We will keep. I appreciate the love, man.
Logan's the man.
So I was in. So anyway, the stories are supposed to start. By the way, Tersh, the rules. Okay, the stories are supposed to start with. So I was in this house.
So I was in this house one time.
So it's sales tales. So I was in this house because it's always like, hey, so I was in this house. So I was in this house. Ready? I asked this homeowner. Not even kidding you. I asked homeowner. I said, so when's the last time you guys changed the filter? Right? I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
They go, what?
That's always a good sign. That's a perfect.
I said, when is the last time you changed a filter? They were like,
what's a filter?
They said, no, they said, well, we found out we had a filter today. And I said, oh, okay, cool. How long have you guys been here? And they were like, we moved in 1984.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Was there a filter left?
Dude, I couldn't wait to see it. I went down. I'm like, oh my God, let me go get this thing, right? I couldn't believe that it was still like I mean, it was all, like holes and like, I mean, it was.
I can only imagine.
I was, that was very funny. But they had been living in the house for, at the time, like 30 something years or whatever. So
you know how the units used to come with the 1-inch filter in the unit, like several years back. They came with them,
like in the air handler or the furnace, and it would have a little slot right there that you would just put the slot in there. And wall units have those too. Yeah.
And so there was a period of time where they actually came with it's a cheapo filter, and it would just be in there. It was not uncommon for a couple years there where people would have return grills or filter grills in the ceiling or in the wall, and that's where they were changing their filter every month. But they never went upstairs or wherever and changed that other filter out, or the technician left it in there and didn't tell them they left it in there. And so you go do a tune up, and like you try and pull this thing out, but it's already concaved because it's sucked in there and it's so dirty and stuff. And they're like, every time I change my filter, it's nothing's doing nothing. I mean, there's no airflow change or anything. And I was like, well, yeah, you have a wall of dirt right in front of the coil. I'm surprised you haven't burned up blower motors. That was back before they had the super temperamental blower motors they have now. These things would pull everything.
Yeah,
golf ball through a water hose.
They were belt driven. Yes, Kathy, you're our favorite to chat with too. Kathy Nielsen said, 2 of my favorite faves. Just 2 dudes with backward hats on. Yeah, having a conversation.
Chicken lady.
So then what is the most surprising, like, have you ever had like just where you were just like surprised in a house where you were like, oh wow, like I didn't know that was gonna happen? Like I could tell you that in my experience.
Yeah, when I walk in a door and I step in a pile of shit. Like, that was surprising.
Yeah. I guess you're right. I guess I was more or less talking about like where you walk into a house. Like I ran this call and it smelled like mold. And I'm not talking about like just a little bit of mold. I'm talking about like mold.
Like
and
how y'all live in this house.
Like, bro, I didn't even want to sit down in this place. It was it felt like I was in a petri dish. And I was on the edge of the couch, like just trying to like not touch anything because it was so disgusting.
People's noses, they get used to that smell. Like,
oh, dude. But here's the thing though. So the house was not anything special. It was a small house. I'm on the edge of the couch. It's the mold smells hitting me in the nose. I'm like, okay, I'm talking to them about whatever, right? And then like I lay out the options and there's like, all these different options, dude. And they throw down, they're like, okay, we'll take that one. And it was like the most expensive one. Like at the time, this was like 10 years ago. It was 16 grand or something like that at the time, which now is like, a cheap system. Right. And
average price.
And dude, they bought that and then they just wrote a check. And the house was gross. The house was disgusting.
And what that teaches you is you cannot judge the book by the cover.
No, you never prejudge.
No,
But
no.
it was
And you
surprising.
walk into a house and you're like, all right, it's an old house. They, sure they have like one vehicle in the driveway, and then you almost don't even present them all the options. And then you're like, you know what? My coach he would just roll over and just beat the hell out of me if I didn't present all the options. So
yeah, because if you don't present it, you can't possibly offer it, and and potentially get that
but
business.
how often do we just go in there and just do a Band-Aid, just do the bare cheapest because you assume that that's all they can afford, and then
Yeah,
they come and give you $10,000 cash, and it's like, whoa, not expect that.
I learned early on not to do that. So I didn't, but I know that most guys, that's sort of how
You get
they,
lazy, especially if you get lazy and you don't want to do it. Like you don't want to go through the whole process, and you're like, oh, this person is going to pay. It's not going to convert anyway, so I'm not even going to go through the whole full process of wowing this customer. And it's like, nope.
Yeah. Sometimes you never know. So interestingly enough, one of my guys was in a house today, walked inside the house. No, guy wouldn't even let him in the house. And our tech was there earlier. It was so stupid.
Yeah.
And dude had a gun out on the table. And refused
But you're in
to turn
Texas.
on. Yeah, but there's etiquette. So people keep a gun in a safe or whatever. You never have a gun out on the table. Gun was out on the
holstered.
Gun was out on the table, and he refused to turn the lights on in the house.
Oh yeah, that's weird.
He refused to turn any lights on, and then he badgered my guy, badgered him, and then my guy was like, he called me, he's like, bro, what am I doing? I don't even feel safe. Like, this guy's got a gun out on the table, he's yelling at me, and he's telling me to give him a number, and it's like, bro, what am I supposed to do with this? You want me to measure anything? You want me to do anything? And I'm like, dude, you don't feel safe. I'm like, just get out of there, right? So, dude, yeah, gun stories.
People are different, that's for sure. Because
why invite somebody over to your house though?
Maybe it's a power trip. Maybe they want to see what they could do.
You had to invite somebody over to your house.
The problem that we have with guns is especially with my guys, like, you pull out guns and then all of a sudden we've derailed this conversation. We're going to talk guns, and hopefully you have enough room in the backyard, so we're going to go shooting. And then you spend the whole afternoon, you call them up and like, hey dude, what the hell are you doing? You've been there for hours. I bet you better have a hella ticket. Like, oh man, actually I ain't sold anything.
Actually, we was shooting guns.
We've been shooting guns.
We've been shooting guns in his backyard.
I
had some old canisters of R22, and they were empty. Don't worry about it, Tersh. We ain't losing money, and we done shot them up right in the backyard.
Yeah. So I actually have a guy who left a service call, goes home, and then I talked to him later on that evening or that afternoon, and he's headed back to the customer's house. And I was like, oh crap, did you forget a tool or something? Like, what the hell? Like, don't go back to a customer's house without telling me. That way, if something happens, there's liability issues and stuff like that. He's like, nah, dude, I'm going back to go hunting. I'm like, you just met that dude. He's like, nah, he invited me to go hunting, so I'm headed back over there. We're going hunting. He goes hunting and shoots a deer. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Well, there you go. Yeah. They hunt pig. They hunt pigs around these parts.
Yeah, we have a pig problem too.
We got a big pig problem. There's not a lot of deer around here. You got to actually go towards the hill country, Austin, and south of here. Logan says, focusing on building rapport with the customer, Tersh, just like y'all told us in the morning meeting.
Yeah, right. The guy approved all of the work too, so had us come back and do all the work, and so yeah, I guess he did build a good rapport. So
Tersh, he's following your directions, bro. Like, you have a guy who's following your directions. You can't. Let the guy hunt, for God's sakes.
I didn't say. Hey, have at it. Cool.
So Tersh, tell people why your name is Tersh. Explain it in a way that doesn't require an MBA.
Okay, so Tersh is short for tertiary, which is Latin for three. And my real name's David Blissett III. So instead of being called Trey, which is what most people who are the thirds called, since birth I've been called Tersh.
Okay, simple
Is that
enough.
simple enough?
It's good enough. It's good enough for me.
Anybody who's ever done any kind of art, like art courses and stuff, you have your primary colors, your secondary colors, and your tertiary colors.
Tertiary colors. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the third.
Let me ask you this, getting on the art kind of thing. You ever run a call where you've had like somebody's had like some kind of like photography or art or decor in the house that just like blew you away?
Dude, like SCAD. Have you ever heard of SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design?
I have, actually. That's a really famous school.
It's a massively famous school. And
yeah,
majority, if you work downtown, you're going in a house that's either a student or somebody who has gone to SCAD, their home. And it's very expensive to live in town as an adult, or as a student. And if you're lucky enough to have a parent who is an investor, it's very common for parents to buy a house, rent it out to the students' friends while they're in school, remodel the house, and then end up selling the house after the students out of school and paid for the entire college with selling the house. And so it's very common practice in Savannah for that to happen. But yes, I've seen some wild and crazy things. I mean, you go into some houses. One of the coolest things is to check out Forrest Gump's bench, because Forrest Gump was filmed in Savannah, and people used to come and like sit on the bench and vandalize the bench, and so it got put into a private collection there.
So, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
service. Get ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, The Midnight and Garden of Good and Evil, the book.
Great movie. Great
yeah,
movie.
So that's in town in Savannah too, and so being able to go service that house is pretty cool.
It's been a minute since I've been to Savannah. I really wanted to get back. It's not like a major hub, so I'm like trying to work.
You know what else is here? This yellow baseball team.
They're playing right now. One of my buddies actually messaged and said that they're actually on right now. Talk about that. Like, how'd you get the Savannah Bananas contract? How'd that work? I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Networking. So whenever they first came to town and they announced that the name was going to be Savannah Bananas, a lot of people wanted to crucify them. Like, they just hated the name. They were like, this is a joke, everything else. And I was one of the first people who just bought a season ticket. And I was at the time, the president of the Small Business Chamber. And so I was like, heck yeah, this is a place where we can start networking. And so I met Jesse and Jared, who's the president. Jesse's the owner, and Jesse and Emily are the owners. And we became friends. Julie became friends with Emily and kind of hit it off. And when Jesse was first starting out, like every time he'd post something on LinkedIn, I would comment and like on it for 2 years. And I was the only person commenting and liking. And he was like, I appreciate it. And I'd share it when I could, or when I thought about it. And so I'm not saying that I'm any part of the reason for their success, but I was just one of those guys that supported Jesse and Jared and them when people were kicking them down. And
and it took a minute for them to get some traction, right? And
it took probably like 6 months before people kind of got buy-in on it. And there was when they announced the name, was the same time that about the same time that Donald Trump announced his presidency or running for president. And so it was wild. Donald Trump was trending on Twitter. Well, for that day, Savannah Bananas was trending either right above or right below Donald Trump announcing he was going for presidency, which is wild.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I wish that I could. I wish I knew somebody that could get tickets for the Savannah Bananas games. That'd be
really cool, wouldn't it?
That'd be really sweet.
So anyways, I mean, we became friends, and I offered to help them with, whatever they needed. At the time, the city of Savannah was handling all of their equipment. But as they added stuff, they needed support, and I just came and helped them. And so I've had season tickets since, day one. And now there's like for the VIP section, which, you have tickets for whenever you come. there's a 5-year waiting list to get on to buy them. So it's wild.
I do appreciate that. I gotta find a flight out there. Yeah. So let me ask you this, while, you know, because we got a few minutes here. I want to sort of. So originally I was talking about, you know, how meaningful some of the calls that we've been on, the customers we've met, the lessons that we've learned throughout it all. But, you know, sometimes I think about like some of the more, I guess maybe some of the sadder sort of stories, or the things that have impacted me from like an emotional perspective. And I know I'm sure that you've given back to your community, you know, tenfold. Is there something that sticks out to you through the course of owning the business and in your career that, you know, says like, okay, this, you know, like a situation or something that tugged at the old heartstrings that you can think of? I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah. I mean, several times we've had clients who we really, pride ourselves on being different. And Jesse's taught me this, Jesse Cole, with the bananas. If it's normal, do the exact opposite. That's why you see an HVAC guy sitting in front of you with a 3-piece suit, and I wear it to work every day. And I'll climb through attics wearing this because it's not normal. And and so I don't know. There's things that I do very outside of the box with our WOW packages. We're pretty conscious about the people that we serve and making sure that we gather information, you know, as we're in the house, trying not to be a creeper about it, but, you know, taking notes on like, hey, these people are Raven fans. And so the next time you go there, even if you don't like give them a gift that's like the Baltimore Ravens or anything like that, but whenever, like, say they win a game or something and you just happen to be there, you're like, so I heard so-and-so, you know, they won, or even like just mentioning it in passing, like as a, just acknowledging that they're a fan of it. And if anybody that buys something like especially a large system, we have automations built out to send them gifts. And if we know what they're a fan of, we can send them, you know, as much gifts that are personalized for them as possible. Well, we have done that a couple times in the past and sent things to family members, or would send them to them and not realize that the family member had passed. And so then it was like ultimately like super like sentimental to them and thoughtful to them. And like, I'm not an emotional person, like, and I don't like being around emotional people, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just awkward for me. Like, that's not my personality. And so to walk in on that and then they start crying and I'm like, oh shit, like what'd I do? And, you know, and then they start like, oh, I'm so thankful. And you're like, so-and-so love this. And now this just makes me think of them even more. And I'm like, oh, this is awkward. I would not have done this if I knew that. But, you know, it brings a lot of value to them. One of the things Jesse goes around and speaks around the whole country. And I didn't know this was going to happen, but I'm super cool and thankful that it did now after the fact. But whenever we sell a system, we have a trigger set up so that Mary goes out and she calls them first, and it doesn't just show up to their house, but she is a massage therapist. And so she'll go out there and give them a massage. They can check the list of it that's kind of built for our company. And Jared's wife was like 8 months pregnant. We put in a new system for them, and it triggered for Mary to call her and say, hey, you know, I'm here to give you a massage. I'm a mobile massage therapist and for Service Emperor, and we're here to take care of you. Well, she busts out crying. She's like, this is exactly what I needed. You know, she was very emotional about like, it was that time where like all the emotions are running wild. She's 8 months pregnant, and they have the ability to do these maternity massages. I don't know what they're called, but they call it something special. And
prenatal massages.
Yeah, there you go. Good job. Good job.
Yeah, I mean, I got like 100 kids.
So she goes there and does it, and she's like bawling and crying, and you know, Jared's telling everybody about this, like how we just surprised her to help her de-stress during a stressful time. And that's the whole reason for us giving out massages after the fact. And so like it was just so happened that it happened exactly when it needed to happen.
This conversation, this went so differently than I would have thought. No, it did in a good way. I'm actually really glad that you told that story. It went so different from the way that I than all my other interviews and then all the other stories. This was great. Well, one, it's a great gesture that you're doing for your customers, right? And then two, the effect that it had on them, and such a humanized, incredibly, sort of intimate and whatever approach that then created an emotional response. Dude, those people are never using another company.
Oh, right. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Which
they've made social media posts about it after the fact, which is crazy because when we did it, they were not viral, and now they're viral and they make a post like that. And it's like, oh crap. Now we have an influx of people that notice us because they made a post about us.
Wow. That's wild.
That's cool.
That is kind of wild. That's cool. So Tersh, I want to say, man, this has been just super cool and very different from all the other conversations I've had. And much like your, I guess, mentor said, right? Be different, right? I mean, don't be what they expect. And I love that approach. Yep. Before we close out here, man, I just wanted to, did you have anything you wanted to, first of all, plug away at everything, your podcast and any closing remarks?
Honestly, I'm just here to give back, dude. If you want to find me, ask more questions, just Google Tersh and I'll pop up. My goal is to be a one-word name, so eventually I'll get there. Just look for the guy in the backwards hat. That's me.
Two dudes in backwards hats just having a conversation. So guys, Tersh Service Business Mastery podcast. There's a Service Business Mastery group on Facebook. It's got like thousands of members. Listen to his podcast. It is so insightful. I also want to personally thank you because while I've been doing this journey, I have been checking. You and Gil, and I've been getting, and Tersh has literally given me like step-by-step like instructions at points where he's like, okay, no, use this piece of equipment. No, you don't really want to use that. You want to stream out using this platform and so forth. And honestly, dude, obviously it's helps. Like I can see in my I can see on my statistics. I've just started this thing like a month ago or whatever, and I can already see like there's traction and there's people that are listening in, and it's amazing. And I owe a lot of that to you, and also you've let me plug on your page, which has been really cool, and obviously piggyback on that. So dude, I know we're like this one world, but bro, I appreciate your friendship, man. I love you, dude. I can't wait to see you at one of these next events. I haven't been to one in over a year, so I'm kind of itching to get back
that's
out there.
For sure. I love being able to just spitball with you when you get to these events. Like some of the best times that I ever have. I don't get me wrong, I love interviewing people at the shows, but being able just to shoot the breeze with you and just hang out and say, hey, did you know this did this, and have you tried this product out, and like, have you heard of this thing? Like, no, I hadn't, and like this process worked great for me, and like I love being able to do that, and it's also like when we were at I think Service World Expo, and we got to actually legit hang out after the fact and go to the bowling alley and all that stuff. Like truly, I do value your friendship. I appreciate you, buddy.
It's cool, man. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And rock and roll, brother. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Yeah, buddy. See you, buddy. Thanks.
Cool. Later. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I haven't done one of these sort of like outros. I just wanted to say next week I have an incredible guest coming on. His name is Brent Buckley. He's the top sales rep period, or has been the top sales rep period. He's owned a company in the HVAC field. The guy's done like literally something like $7 or $8 or $9 million a year, whatever it is. So he's going to be on next week. After that, I have a guest who is a very dear friend of mine. Her name is Shelly Courtney. She works, and she's actually in Austin. No, she's in Katy right now, outside of Houston. and she is in the middle of doing a cleanup. So she is a hoarder cleanup and an organizational specialist. And it's wild what this woman sees. So she's going to be coming on as well. So just wanted to say, so yeah, next Wednesday, it'll be with Brent Buckley. And thank you guys so much this is the most amount of chats we've had. So guys, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Till next week.